All right, welcome back, everybody. We're at our second episode of Pleasant Valley Food Plot Podcast, and I'm going to speak to you today about what I think is obviously the most important thing is how to utilize these food plots. We're going to do on episode one my general introduction to myself and my business. We talked a little bit about some of the hunting. Episode three, which is coming after this, which is going to be more technical agricultural science stuff about sprays and application rates and seed poundage rates and fertilizer rates and equipment. So I'm on this episode, which I think is the complete circle of how we're going to be able to hunt these successfully and get the most out of your food plot. So I think one of the first things I want to go off of is we're going to go down through pretty much an itemized list of all the important things that you need to know. And they're going to come from me from experience. I used to hunt mornings in trees, in the woods, back and forth bedding areas. I planted food plots early in life to get the deer just to have the nutrition on the property. And I actually try to hunt them coming back into the woods in the mornings. And I completely rearranged my thought process on how to hunt these food plots. And a lot of it was spawned, and I didn't even realize how successful you would be with these food plots up until I started taking my daughter hunting. Obviously, she's, 8-year-old girl. We weren't climbing a tree stand. I wasn't even comfortable taking her up in a double stand. And I had her hunt with a crossbow on a tripod and a rifle for the youth doe season. So we had to be on the ground and we had to be in the food plot. And I wanted to be in an area where my kid was going to see a lot of deer. And it changed my whole thought process, period, on what deer hunting is for us and our family and even my friends now. So what I started doing was every food plot I got, I have a ground blind on them. And we manage our food plots with intel to see what bucks are where. I have cell cameras on all of them, trail cameras everywhere, and I'm trying to figure out for ourselves where the biggest buck are and when they moved into the area. They do not tell you everything, the cameras. I've so many times have been on food plots and literally have 2 cameras on a food plot and there's 20 deer in the food plot and the camera is not registering any pictures because the deer aren't in front of the cameras. So there's times where I could say to myself, man, these deer aren't coming out right now. They're not out on the food plot yet. I don't understand why. And you physically get there and look, and there's a whole herd on that food plot. They just didn't come out of the corner you thought. So cameras aren't everything. And I've also had how many deer now, mature buck, that I've had on camera all through the season, all in velvet. And that velvet comes off and those deer disappear. And then come first week of November, there he is standing there again, dogging a doe. And we either take him out or he gets off on us, but we see them deer again, those buck will return back. So just because they're not on the camera doesn't mean that they're not on the property. I found that out more than once. Being in the stand is probably the most important thing to really know what's going on in your food plots. So yeah, I want to go over a bunch of stuff: wind, access, in and out, how to set up your blind, where to put it out in the food plot, how to hunt inside of it, how to be and manage everything that you need to on being able to hunt over and over again at the same spot. And then I also want to let you know on just my personal thoughts on keeping that viable as a hunting spot year and year and year and year over and over and over again. So number one, and we all know this as a hunter, wind is everything. I battle constantly on wind direction as far as, so where I'm at here in Pennsylvania, in Schuylkill County, we have 99% of the time, we have a northwest wind. So when I say that, the wind is coming out of the northwest. You always get that evening lull where the sun's going down and the thermals settle, and then you have no scent whatsoever, no scent travel whatsoever, and you have no wind. We get a couple of those southern winds, so you get a couple storms, but I would say pretty much every single stand I have, I set up that if there's deer in front of me in my perspective, like my 90 to 90 degree angle of shooting lanes, my scent is not blowing in that direction. I try to set up myself so that, obviously, like you hear all the time, the wind's in your face. I constantly want to keep that wind in my face. And it's not because of the buck that I want to shoot, it's because of the doe that are there. The problem I have is these food plots are working too well, and I have too many deer, and it's getting dark at 7 o'clock, but at 5 o'clock, the first doe hit the food plot. And you got to somehow sit there and manage for 2 hours or an hour and a half, whenever those buck are going to come out, and you have to manage your time in that blind without getting detected. Times that by two when I'm always taking somebody with me hunting. So I have two people that I have to worry about not getting, detected while we're hunting. So I go through a whole regimen. I mean, not just, for everything. So, in our garage area where we leave the house, I have a room where I have a bathroom and a shower right there. We're psychotic about our scent. I never, ever go hunting, ever, unless I can take a shower. I take a full shower, scent-free soap, wash everything down. I go through a whole procedure on how I dry with my towels. And then I wear certain clothing from that moment in my truck, and I drive to where I'm going. Then I completely get out of my truck. I have a whole ritual where I have my clothing. I get my clothing out of my sealed totes. I have scent-free totes that I keep everything sealed. I get the clothing off that I'm wearing, put on a new set of clothing. I also believe in carbon suits. I rotate 2 carbon suits that I go through the instructional process of descenting them, where you put them in the dryer on high for 45 minutes and it releases all the scent from the carbon. I wear an undersuit, and I am very, very psychotic about making sure I'm really have dark colors and my face is covered when I'm in the blind. Um, it's tough, traveling in the woods without getting, sweated up. Almost every one of my stands, I can get within a couple 100 yards of where I'm hunting, so I don't have a big hike. But yeah, I really try to minimize my scent. I even went as far as I got a thermal scent shield device. I guess I don't want to say too many, but like it's like an ozonics type piece of equipment that's supposed to digest your thermals and take away your scent. I wouldn't say they're 100%. I've used them correctly, and I noticed there's like this magical force field of like 15 yards. I had deer throughout certain times where my wind changed and was wrong, and I noticed that deer would pick me up and be alerted. They really wouldn't like jump up and run away, but they'd have an alert. They would knew something hit their nose that wasn't right, and they'd perk up and they'd get a little weird. Some of them stomp, and then they would move on. You'd almost see as they walked out of the scent cone that they would relax themselves and go back to feeding. And then once they were about 30 yards and out, nothing would pick me up at that point. So no matter what you do, no matter how psychotic you are about controlling your scent, you get a deer that's 15 feet in front of you for a half an hour and the wind switches on you, you're going to have problems. I mean, that's hunting, and there's only so much you can do. I think the other big thing that is super duper crucial is when you make your stand placement. I'm not so much worried. So I don't like crossing my food plot. I don't like walking from corner to corner or across the middle where I think the deer are going to travel. I really try to keep my access that I'm out of the food plot till I literally have to get in my blind. And then not only is that important, but being able to get out of the blind and get out of the hunting area, get out of the food plot, and get back to your vehicle without blowing out the whole field. When I say blowing out, I mean like, all the deer running away. And then you kind of sometimes can ruin your next night's hunt. I noticed deer will be a little sheepish. They're a little timid to come out as early as they did for a night or two till things calm down. And when the rut's on and it's that magic week and you got a big boy that's cruising and you got that super buck that showed up they've been looking for, you don't want to ruin it. You might want to hunt that same blind 2 or 3 nights in a row. So the last thing you want to do is be tromping across your food plot and kicking all 25 doe out of there that have been standing there. And then that's going to be what your buck's looking for the next night. You really got to be careful on how you get out of the stand. That's like, I think, as important. I also believe in getting out your blind as early as possible, making sure it's there for at least a month before the season. Let those deer get used to it, get it out there. And for it to stay there through the whole season, you got to be careful. Snow will crush them. If you're using a portable blind or a pop-up blind, we've been hunting the same areas now for years upon years. So I started putting permanent blinds, the structures I showed you in episode 1. We use these box blinds that I've been hunting out of for a couple years. I love them. You can put 3 people in them. The windows are tinted. They're great. So if the windows are open or closed, the deer can't tell the difference. They're completely sealed off. There no bugs get in. They're carpeted. They're silent. Now, I want to tell you something. Now, when you have kids and you're in them blinds, everybody likes to put them up on ladders, but you got to be careful. If they get off the ground more than 6 feet, you almost need to be up on a bar stool to be able to like get up and be able to have the correct angle to shoot out and down out of your blind. I had a couple of those blinds and I built 10 inch to 12 inch platforms inside the blind. Now, when you stand up, your head's a little close to the ceiling, but then when you're sitting there in a chair with a kid, they can have themselves up high enough that they can shoot out of the blind without having to stand up to shoot. And a tripod's everything. I used to have like the Caldwell tripods that had the 2 sticks that you can put the butt of the weapon and the forearm in the front sticks. They work great. And then I finally switched over to those death grip bipods that you can tighten right on the forearm of the crossbow or rifle. And man, they're awesome. They're just, you can get tighter with the crossbow to the window and it gives you more space inside the blind. And that's awesome when you're in there and you have kids and they have all their backpacks and everything there and snacks, and you need a lot of space. But if you're on the ground, which is how I do almost all my hunting, I have my pop-up blinds and I make sure that my windows stay open. That is huge. People shut the windows when they leave. And then they come in and they open up those windows. And when those deer see that retreat and that darkness inside that blind, it spooks them a little bit. It geeks them out a little bit. They'll come right out. They'll look right at you and they're uneasy and uncomfortable. They'll stomp around and they just throw an alert to all the other deer that are in the field that really haven't looked at you. The other thing I don't do that I never had luck with is actually like brushing in my blind. I put all my blinds right on the edge of the food plot. I'll tuck them in a little bit maybe, but not enough that it's like I'm trying to hide them. Let them see it. Let them see him. Let them be comfortable. Let them know everything's okay. Leave your windows open. And I've had, oh my God, there's sometimes where I'll have 40, 50 deer in the same field around me and they won't even blink. They won't look at you. If you do it right, you will not alert the deer. The other big mistake that I think people make is, hey, go to Walmart and buy a bunch of cheap chairs and leave them open and in the blind. People have these chairs, they're in the back of their truck, and then they travel to the blind, they put them open, and then that scent, that carries as much scent as anything you could ever imagine. So keeping your chairs in your blind at the same time you set your blind up. And people, I hear people happening all the time where their blinds blow away. I take probably, I think it's usually 3-foot rebar, and I pound that in with a sledgehammer. And I, on all 4 sides, I rope that thing down and I make sure my corners are tightened down as well so that it can stay there, you know, from literally September all the way till the middle of December if need be. So make sure your blind's secure. Another thing, if you can't always pick this, but making sure the sun is at your back. When that sun's setting, if you can, you don't want that shining right in on your face. I'm wearing, for this episode, my hoodie that I usually wear in the blind. I usually really try to go all black. If I know that the deer be getting a little closer to me, I blacken out my face. I'll either wear a net or I'll put on camo face paint. Because again, it's not the buck you're worried about that's going to peg you. It's them doe that are going to stand there for 2 hours. That's where you're going to have the issue. And you know, I try to tell people that to have a really good food plot, you need deer to come to the food plot and come early. By law, you can't shoot deer in the dark, so those deer need to be there in daylight. I've also adopted not to go into the woods. I don't care what time of year it is. I don't care how heavy the rut is, what's going on. I do not go in the woods at all. I let them deer get as close as possible to the food plot where they feel as comfortable, and they lay as close as possible so they're there as early as possible. I don't go in the woods anymore. I let the woods go. We kind of have a family rule where like once mid-September hits, you stay out of the woods till after the season. And it just, creates an area where, again, here in Pennsylvania, we have a high pressure. I mean, everybody has somebody that's hunting within a couple hundred yards of you. Deer are alert. And the more that your ground has a sanctuary quality throughout the season, the more deer that are going to stay there, period. Now, we all know if you shoot a deer and you have a recovery, you're going to go down in. That is what it is. You're not going to be able to change that. But I mean, we've shot deer and boogered the whole place up, went down, drug deer out, and the next night went right back in and there was 25 deer standing there. When that food plot's hopping and it's good to go, they're going to be there. I would say the only time that I see a lull, like my food plots are usually like real hot and heavy going into the beginning of the season. And then when that acorn drop comes, that mass crop hits the ground, I don't care what you got out there. You're not going to compete with acorns. I know this past year we had a crazy acorn crop and I was going from, my food plot cameras would light up. I'd get 500 pictures on a food plot down to 25 pictures. And once them deer get on them acorns, you're going to still have deer in your food plots, but it's not going to be as crazy as it is until then once the leaves hit the ground. People always wonder why they come back. I think deer are a little goofy. They're not digging around as much as like a bear or something would. But when those leaves drop and you get a big heavy rain and all them leaves drop at the end of October and they literally cover up the acorns with the leaves, I don't think the deer are smart enough to dig around and they return back to the food plots. It seems like right when you need them most to be in the food plots, that's when they're going to be there. But yeah, we've been successful year after year. Again, the last couple of years I've been getting, on my own food plots, we've been killing, 4 buck and a couple doe. And it's all kids, crossbows, rifles, and we've had no problems year after year keeping them deer there. Half my food plots right now, like I said, I go with Nebraska mix, my horn hypnotizer mix, which is Braskas, and I usually mix that. I'll put to the acre, I'll put 15 pounds of that, and I'll mix that in with my freezer filler, which is my winter wheat, triticale, soybeans, and Austrian winter peas. So I kind of have like a salad look to my food plots, and there's something for them there from day one till the end of the season. I've been throwing in some buckwheat as a cover crop too. The buckwheat will come up. They'll eat that. It's a very aggressive growing plant, but as soon as the frost hits it, it's gone, and it'll keep the deer there all early season. And then as soon as the first frost hits, it crushes it. And then it gives the time for the Braskas and all the other stuff to really grow in, and kind of protects that a little bit. And then as soon as that stuff's gone, as soon as that frost hits, it sugars up your Braskas and then are on Nebraskas right away. But once some of those areas that I've been planting year after year, again, I work for other people, so I don't be worried about mine. I transitioned half my properties over to white clover. It's a little easier for equipment wise. You don't have to be tilling the ground and going through that whole process. You literally spend an hour on an acre a year. You go up, spray it with a pre-emergent, and then fertilize it in the fall. And like I said, you'll get about 3 to 4 years out of your clover before you start to see it regress a little bit in age and maturity. But anything green at the right spot is better than nothing at all. So again, going back, if anybody needs help with these food plots, that's what this is about. I want to help people out, and I also want to promote myself at Pleasant Valley Food Plots. You can call us whenever you want at 570-943-7626. We'll get back to you right away. Whether it's just for you want seed, fertilizer, mineral, consultation. Some people do it themselves but can't get lime into where they're at. Whatever you guys need, we're there for you. Helping you set up blinds. People sometimes call and they just want a second opinion too. They want another, a professional to look at everything that they think before they get started on a plan, and just to get some ideas. I'm there for anybody, and whatever they need. But like I said, episode 1, if you guys tune in and didn't, that's an overview of how we do everything, from how I started, my background, to the professional side of the food plots, and the business side. And then next podcast, it's going to be the more technical side of agriculture. So you guys can hopefully get a little of everything and feel a little bit more confident going into your season this year. And if there's anything else I can do to help, reach us at 570-943-7626. Thanks again for joining us at Pleasant Valley Food Plot Podcast. Next time.